Hi everyone, my name is Larry Miller. I'm president of the Retail Control Group. Welcome to today's webinar. We're going to cover three particular topics today. One, where's your shrink? The results of the National Supermarket Shrink Survey from 2013. From there, we're going to lead into the best-in-class companies' best practices, exactly what best-in-class companies are doing to control their shrink. And we're going to summarize today into one final section, and that is what results you should expect if you implement best-in-class practices from the National Supermarket Shrink Survey. That'll be today's webinar, but it sets the stage for the subsequent seminars. We're going to dive deeper into your shrink control and profit opportunities. We're going to talk about perishable shrink prevention, loss prevention leadership, and the vital role of collaboration with store operations and loss prevention, leading a whole new initiative into profit optimization. So I hope you enjoyed today's seminar and you look forward to the other ones coming forth in the next months. If you have any questions during the course of this seminar, don't hesitate to email me at larry@retailcontrol.com if you have any questions or interest in future webinars. Thanks again for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed the webinar. Okay, let's get right to it. Today we're going to be talking about shrink prevention for profit optimization. Again, my name is Larry Miller. I'm joined here today by my partner Mike Kinsland, and we've been at this for a little over 25 years, measuring shrink nationally, working with companies all around the country to reduce their shrink and improve their profit. In fact, we have worked with some of the largest companies in the country and some of the most independently active companies in the country. Those companies that are really seeking improved performance year over year, month after month, week over week. So these companies are doing the best in practices. They're striving to really make some results happen in their companies. And over the years, we've defined shrink very clearly as the difference between the retail value of product received and the amount received for that product at the time of its sale. That keeps the message very crystal clear and clean. And during that time, and during our work at the National Supermarket Research Group, we've determined that 64% of all shrink is caused by a breakdown in operational best practices. And of that 64%, 57% of that shrink is preventable or immediately impactable for better profit results. In fact, when you look at the math of the entire formula, if a store in the average store is doing $18 million with national shrink running about 2.7% of retail sales, that estimates your shrink out to be about $486,000 a year per store per year. If you reduce that shrink an average of 18%, which is what history proves can be done with the implementation of best practices, that can add as much as $87,000 in bottom line profit from shrink reduction. Now, assuming that your profit margin in that same store is 2%, you would have to increase sales $4,320,000 a year, or 24%, in order to achieve the same bottom line profit of $87,000. Now, when you multiply that times your number of stores, the return on investment becomes huge. Now, that's a big number, and a lot of people question the ability to reduce that. But as Steve Jobs said, it's the people who are crazy enough to think that they can change the world who actually do. So I'd like to focus today on the fact that we have one job and one job only, and that is to make money. We do that in two distinct ways, with customer service excellence and shrink prevention, so that we yield all of the profit in the store that we should be getting. Otherwise, the result is one big giant money pit, where your profit is going down the tubes day after day. And that's a shame, because it can be preventable if we just take an approach that says we're going to move from loss prevention to profit optimization. Now, that doesn't avoid loss prevention. It just repositions your thinking from the after-the-fact loss negativity prevention to profit optimization, doing all of those things every single day that optimize profit. That shift in paradigm, that shift in thinking, takes us a long way to changing the attitude about how we make money in our stores. And in order to really make that shift to profit optimization, I like to focus on 6 profit drivers. Those 6 profit drivers, if we focus the company on these, we have something really significant to achieve. The 6 profit drivers are store walk. That's a store manager who knows what to look at as he or she walks the store every single day. Known loss awareness and control, inventory control and management, organization and sanitation, cashier performance monitoring, and receiving best practices. Now, I always start with store walk for this reason. When we interview store managers around the country, 57% say that they actually walk their store every single day upon arrival to see their store readiness and exactly what conditions they have in their store. And they focus on sales readiness. And while that's vital, and we must do that, we must also make sure that they're very sensitive and clearly understand the dynamics of what drives a profitable store. So store walk training for consistent execution every single day, we can't live with 57% of our store managers doing a functional and purposeful store walk. We need 100% of them doing that. And indeed, of the 57% who say they do a store walk in the morning, only 21% say that they do a second one before they get ready to go home at the end of the day, knowing what conditions they're leaving their evening manager in charge to take over. So store walk becomes a vital function of the profit driver system for profit optimization and shrink prevention. And that leads us clearly into the vital role of inventory control. Because as you're going to learn as we go forward, if we can think in very specific terms about inventory control and where we might be making money or losing money as it relates to handling and managing our inventory, we can go a long way in driving profit in our stores. So the inventory control process begins with money in the bank. We use that money to buy goods and price goods. We then deliver those goods to the store, and at the store receiving area, the receipt of goods, we have a function of about 6 to 8% shrink loss that occurs at that point of delivery. We then move into handling those goods and exactly how we handle those goods, get the refrigerated items or the frozen items into storage, or get the dry grocery, HBC, and GM items into controlled areas for later production. We have about a 14% shrink factor associated with how we handle those goods. Then the big one that comes in is production planning and space allocation. 17% shrink results from, in particular in the perishable departments, production planning inefficiencies. But it also stems into the grocery department where we don't handle and produce our goods in a best timely fashion and in an organized, sanitary method, because how we do our handling and our production planning combines for a lot of the shrink that we suffer in the store today. And it's all operationally centric. It has nothing to do with theft. It has nothing to do with misdeeds. It has to do with how we do what we do. We then move into the display space allocation and display practices, particularly, again, dramatic impact in perishables, but also in groceries for another 7% shrink factor. About 9% of shrink occurs at the point of sale. That all yields down to the profit that goes right back to the bank for reinvestment in our stores. If store managers and department managers don't understand the vital role and possible points of failure in the inventory control cycle, well, ladies and gentlemen, that's just the blind leading the blind. Store managers and department managers walk their stores, but they don't understand the vital business role that they have to take when it comes to inventory control. And all of those wrapped together, when the store manager takes off the blindfold and understands what he or she is looking for, that all results in certain conditions that you can see and feel and experience as you look at a bright, fresh, crisp rack presentation, coolers that are neat, clean, and organized, achieving optimal inventory turnover for freshness and quality and cash production, and a backdoor receiving area and back room control area where things just feel under control wall to wall with the entire experience as you walk into your stores. And store personnel really take to the understanding of conditions matter once we teach them or once they are taught to understand inventory control and how important it is. In fact, some retailers, such as Dave Wilkinson, president of Strachan Van Til, says after 7 months, our produce shrink is down 27%. Meat shrink is down 15%. Deli shrink 18%. And grocery shrink is down 6%. These are the kinds of results store managers and store teams can get when they really understand the dynamics of profit optimization. So with that, I'd like to turn the mic over to Mike Kinslen, our partner here at the Retail Control Group, to talk about the National Supermarket Research Group Shrink Study from 2013 and exactly what we learned and why it's vital that you understand these messages and take them forward into your company so that everyone understands where the shrink is and what we can do to prevent it.
Thanks, Larry. We found some really cool information through the 2013 National Supermarket Research Group's Shrink Survey that I want to share with everybody. Just a little overview in regards to the National Supermarket Research Group. It was founded in 1989. It is the single largest and most reported on survey of its kind for the supermarket industry. It is supported by FMI, NGA, a variety of other large companies, as you can see. And one of the largest facts that we were able to discover in the 2013 survey was 64% of store shrink is caused by a breakdown of operational best practices, as Larry has already covered. But let's go into it a little bit deeper. One of the cool things that we discovered that a lot of folks know is the majority of our sales in the supermarket come from non-perishables, but the majority of our shrink occurs in the perishable department. And the understanding that we had here is when we looked at companies that had best-in-class shrink, those companies were putting a huge effort in regards to the perishable departments on how they handled product, as Larry was talking about earlier, and how they represent that product out on the sales floor. 65% of all shrink in the perishable department provides a huge opportunity for shrink reduction and profit improvement. We then learned, as we already talked about, 64% of all shrink was due to operational errors and only 36% was caused by theft. The average supermarket in this survey averaged about a 2.7% total store, total company shrink, and with theft at 36% and breaking down into a couple of key areas. Okay, so let's first dive down a little bit deeper into the 36% of shrink that's caused by theft. That occurs in 5 primary areas: shoplifting, cashier caused theft, general employee theft, and of course, vendor theft. And those percentages you see here on the screen. The big understanding or the big learning that we discovered in this year's survey was that only 29% of that shrink, total theft shrink, is preventable. And that's primarily because of where we have been as an industry in the past, where we do have our cameras out there, we have a huge loss prevention initiative focused on theft. We've done a really good job of trying to minimize that, and there's not really a whole lot of profit left in there. About 29% about that is preventable. Different story when we look at the shrink caused by operational errors. Operational errors, we have 9 specific categories to focus on. And as you can see, it's led by ordering, a smart order. Ordering causes about 22% of all operational shrink. Now, in the operational shrink, 64% of all shrink being operational caused, we start off with an order, it goes into production planning, handling and storage, rotation, and so on around this wheel or this operational error chart, if you will. The big learning and the big understanding that we discovered in this year's survey is 57% of all operational shrink is in fact preventable. Again, that kind of comes back to companies in best of class that report the lowest shrink of all stores put a focus and effort on shrink prevention to optimize profit in the operational areas. What we learned here was those companies best in class reported well below the national average of shrink of about 1.7, and those companies are putting a big effort into those operational causes of shrink, particularly in perishables. And what they're yielding out and what they're looking for and what they look like when you walk into their stores are conditions like this. Back rooms that are neat, clean, organized. Backroom recovery areas that are neat and organized so that folks can put the product back where it belongs. Backroom workstations that are neat, clean, good information up on bulletin boards and so forth. managers in departments that know exactly where the information is. They're tracking no loss and so forth. And the way that they got to these types of conditions is through training. Not generalized training, but customized training. Training that focuses on shrink reduction and the profit improvement training that begins with an intense focus on shrink reduction. It's curriculum-based training. It's not the one-off training seminars or sessions that you might go to. It actually they have content, they have chapters, they have tests at the end of each chapter. They're motivating, they're exciting, and they set return on investment goals for this specific training. They bring in the whole company, they bring in all the store managers to this training, and they get fantastic results. Larry, why don't you take them through the results?
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate you going over that part of the program, and I'm sure the audience does as well. As you can see, this program sets up curriculum-based training for your company. Meaning, if you implement a curriculum-based training, not just one-off seminars or one-off discussions, you actually get a continuous learning impact as well as an operational and shrink reduction impact where people know how to run better businesses. The first result that I want to share with you is that of David Ball, who implemented just such a program at his company, and he says his meat shrink is down 21%, his produce shrink is down 18%, deli down 12%. I've now given you 3 different senior executives, presidents of companies that have gotten significant shrink reduction results. But I want to share with you one of the other results that occur during this kind of an approach to profit optimization, and that is customer complaints go down over time and customer compliments go up. So when we can have fresher product, cleaner product, neater stores, store managers who are really managing their stores for profit optimization, customer complaints going down, customer compliments going up is the optimal net result in addition to the shrink reduction results. That leads us to what shrink reduction you really should be able to get according to best-in-class companies, and history proves 18% lower shrink, exactly the kind of numbers that Sky Thompson reports at his company, Market Basket, in Nederland, Texas. Sky's perishable shrink is down 22%, yielding an overall improved net cash flow improvement and better supervisory leadership in the company. So the whole concept of profit optimization under collaboration with loss prevention and store operations really working together to yield the best profit results necessarily includes those practices that by and of themselves reduce shrink. So we start thinking about profit making being our number one job, not loss prevention. Profit making, we're in the business to buy goods, sell goods, and make a profit. And when we take all of the conditions, all of the best practices associated with that, and put them together, the process is the result. It's not what you do, but how you do it that matters most in the area of profit optimization, running great stores, having lower shrink, and having excellent customer service for all your customers. Mike and I would like to thank you for joining us today. I hope you discovered a few points that you can put together. Again, this is the first in a series of webinars that we're going to be doing. Our next one will focus on perishable shrink reduction. If you enjoyed this webinar and you have any questions, please don't hesitate to email us. You can email me personally at larry@retailcontrol.com. That's larry@retailcontrol.com. I'll be happy to answer your questions about anything we discussed here today and what the best practices that were revealed in the 2013 National Supermarket Shrink Survey revealed. Again, I thank you. Have a great day. Let's go make some money.